So, first of all, um, I moved to the Pacific Northwest with my wife and took a new journey just about a year ago or so because I was working a good job. It was an outside sales job and I was traveling a lot and I was having fun in the job, but I was tired of traveling so much. And so I decided that we would move and we would take the journey and plunge into self-employment. Ever since I was a kid, I'm sure like yourself, you figure out when you're a kid that you do the things that you love. Obviously, you don't have to work, you don't have to make an income, and so you do the things you love. And one of the things that I loved doing when I was younger was woodworking. So when I decided I was going to do self-employment, one of the first things I decided to do was, of course, woodworking. I'd also been building cedar planter boxes for our own container garden, and so that was one of the first products that I moved into when I decided I wanted to sell wood products. I had experience doing it. I knew people wanted them. And the time of year was right. We moved to the Pacific Northwest just around spring, so that time was just coming up when people were buying planter boxes. And so I quickly moved into farmers markets and all kinds of things, and I'll tell you the exact things that I did to make an income. And now I'm full-time woodworking, and this is just one piece of my income, but it's an important piece, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can do this. Of course, you signed up for this webinar and you're watching this video because you want to learn how to make $1,000 per month extra income, and I'm going to teach you how to do that easily. You'll be able to make at least 1,000, but possibly even more. And I'll show you how you can make good money, not only selling retail, but wholesale. And I'm also going to walk you step by step through the plans of the basic woodworking cedar planter box that you can take and adapt to any size that you want. So it's a great webinar. It's a great workshop. I'm so glad that you're here, and I'm so glad that you decided to join. So first of all, I want to talk about the product. So as we talk about the product, and when we get into that, I want to talk about also why you are here. So you're here because you're, number one, needing a little extra income. I think that's why you clicked on this. I think that's why you're watching this video. It's because you're wanting to make a little extra income. You maybe are wanting to transition into full-time woodworking. Maybe that's an option that you're looking to do, and so that would be another reason why you're here. You like to work with wood. I think that if you're probably watching this video, you probably love to work with wood. It's something that you enjoy, and it's something that you want to do, and so you love that. And you want to spend more time with your family. You want to have more time doing the things that you want to do with the people that you want to do. So I'm about to share from my own personal experience how I turned my woodworking hobby into a full-time income, and in this case we're going to mainly talk about the $1,000 per month. This is how you can get started. You can get your feet wet, you can stick your toe in the water, so to speak, and make sure this is for you. So let's talk about, first of all, before we actually get into the exactly how to sell it, where to sell it, and all that stuff, all that nitty-gritty stuff, I want to first take us through the product itself. So this product I'm going to show you, and we'll talk a little bit at the end, you can adapt this particular woodworking plan into a lot of different sizes, a lot of different shapes, and a lot of different ways. And so this is going to be great for you. So first of all, the product. The product we're going to be mainly talking about here is the classic cedar box. So what we're talking about here specifically is a 14-inch box. I'm going to show you the dimensions that you need to make a 14-inch cedar planter box. But as I mentioned, you can take this, you can make it a 16, you can make it a 18, you make it a 24, you can make it rectangular, you can not put a bottom on it, you can make it a raised bed. There's a lot of different things you can do with this basic, easy construction, and I think it's going to be important. Another thing before we get into some of this other stuff, make sure that if you are new to woodworking that you are careful. So as when you're working with any woodworking product or project, make sure you use every safety precaution to make sure that you avoid any injury while you're operating your power tools. I don't want you to get hurt, and I'm not going to be liable for any damages or injuries caused by mistakes, misuse, or lack of caution when making this product. So make sure that you are really careful, you know what you're doing, and use all safety precautions. Use safety goggles, use a respirator, just whatever you have to protect yourself. Make sure you protect yourself. So let's get into the plans here. This is the product, the Cedar Planter Box. It's very simple, and what I love about this product is you can build it for $10 or less, and once you get into it and you get used to building it, you can build it in 30 minutes or less. And so what you'll need, first thing, obviously you'll need supplies. We're going to build this out of cedar fence boards. Now, I love cedar fence boards because they're very inexpensive, but they are good cedar. Now, you'll have to take a few minutes when you go to your local lumber shop, whether you go to Lowe's, Home Depot, or a local lumber yard. You'll have to take a few minutes and make sure that you pick the boards that have as little knots as possible, or if they do have knots, they're very small, tight knots that are not going to crack. You also want to make sure that the wood is of uniform thickness and is not bowed. So you'll notice when you go to the lumber yard and you're digging through the lumber, a lot of the boards now are kind of shoddy, especially if you're going through the wood that's less than $3. It's not going to be the best quality, but if you dig through it, you'll be able to find maybe in a pallet of them, you might be able to find maybe 100 out of the 400 are good solid boards. And so it'll take a little time, but it'll be worth it. And so you'll need 3 6-foot cedar fence boards. And when I say 6-foot fence boards, I'm talking about the 6-foot boards that are about 5.5 inches wide. And you want to, if you can, avoid the dog ear, because the dog ear at the end wastes wood, and so you'll have to use more wood than 3 boards if you have the dog ear. But most places, I know my local Home Depot has, and so does my local Lowe's, they both have cedar fence boards with the no dog ear end. You'll also need some wood screws, so 12 1.5-inch wood screws. If ideally you'd want to use ones that are galvanized and ones that can be used exterior and not rust. So galvanized is a good option. You also need 48 1-inch screws. That's to actually attach the panels to the side legs there. So other tools that you'll need, so we talked about supplies. You'll also make sure, obviously, some obvious things. You'll need a tape measure, a square, a pencil, a saw. You could do this with a hand saw. It's going to be really tough. You could do it with a circular saw. It would be pretty tough. But ideally, you have a chop saw and you have a table saw. And then you'll also want to have some kind of drill. I personally use a regular drill, and then I use an impact driver. I find that to be the best combination, but if you just had a drill, then you can make that work, not a problem. You'll also want a countersink drill bit. So if you just go to Google and type in countersink drill bit, you'll see what I'm talking about. But basically what it is it's a standard drill bit. Then it has a little head on it that pre-drills a little divot for the screw head to rest in. Keeps your wood from splitting. It also gives a nice clean finished look. And so it's a really simple step. One drill, you do both at the same time. They're inexpensive and it's kind of a must-have. And then for attaching the bottom, you either need a nails and hammer, or a brad nailer would be most ideal. And you can use a little electric cheap one. It doesn't have to be anything fancy. We're just talking about 18 gauge brad nails, something very simple. And then, like I mentioned, hopefully you could have a table saw, a chop saw, and an 18 gauge brad nailer. That would be ideal. So let's go ahead and get into the plans. First of all, you want to do some cuts. Obviously, before you start, you'll need a cut. So you'll need 4 boards cut to 12 7/8 inch long. So you'll see number 1, 4 of them at 12 7/8. Now you say, well, I thought this is a 14-inch box. Why 12 7/8? When I say 14-inch box, to maximize the wood and to be completely accurate, the posts themselves stick out 1 1/8 inch when you put those together, and I'll show you how to make those posts in a minute. But those posts stick out 1 1/8 inch. So 1 1/8 inch plus 12 7/8 inch equals 14 inches. So the actual box on the outside dimension will be 14 inches. But you'll want to cut these first panels to 12 7/8 and 5.5 inches. Now, note, I do want you to make sure that you check these boards. So sometimes when you buy cedar fence boards, they will be not of uniform width. Some might be 5.5, some might be 5 3/8, some might be slightly over. They might be like 5 5/8. You just want to check that, and if you can, and I recommend this step, it's definitely an important step, go ahead and set your table saw to maybe, I don't know, 5 7/16 or something, just slightly under 5.5 or right at 5.5, depending what you have, and run each cedar board through that to make sure that you have a very uniform size. You'll thank me later on when you're assembling this. It'll keep it nice and straight. So I recommend you run all your 3 cedar boards through and make them a uniform width if they're not. If they already are, if you measure them and they're good, then you can just skip that step. You'll also want 4 11 3/4 boards, that same 5.5 inch width, and 2 11 3/4 for the bottom. So I guess technically 6 11 3/4 boards. The other thing you want to do is you want to make the posts. So you'll see there in the pictures 4 and 5, you'll see skinnier boards there, and I made those by simply taking one of those 5.5 inch wide by 6 foot boards, and I set my table saw to just under 3 inches, maybe a 16th under 3 inches, and then I run that board directly through it. I split it, and so what you're left with is a thin board that's about 3 inches wide and a board that's roughly 2.5 inches wide. And then what you do is you take those, the 3 inch wide and the 2.5 inch wide, you cut those into 4 12 inch posts. So you'll have a total of 8, 4 of the 3 inch, 4 of the 2.5. And then to hold the bottom on, you'll need to make another cut with a table saw. So you'll have some remnant left over there. You'll only use 4 feet of the 6 feet of that 3 inch that you cut. You'll want to go ahead and take one of those 3 inch boards and then cut that in half to have roughly 2 1 1/4 inch pieces, and you want to cut those to 11.5 inches, and I'll show you how to use those in just a second. So there's the cuts, and I will make sure that if you want this PDF, you can email me at Jonathan, JONATHANS, at salespurpose.com, JONATHANS at salespurpose.com, and I can email you this PDF so you'll have that for future reference. But those are the cuts that you need. Okay, first step is you want to assemble the legs. So you want to take the 3 inch board and make a little X where you want to drill it. You want it to be uniform and clean. You also want it to make sure that it's going to fit on the side of the board that you're going to butt it against in just a second. So do that. And then if you can either, if you have that drill bit that I talked about earlier, that has a recessed bit on it, the countersink drill bit, then you can use that. If you don't have that, then what you'd want to do is you'd want to start with a 3/8 drill bit, drill a little divot, and then take a 1/8 inch drill bit and drill a hole through. Since you're near an edge there, you want to keep it from splitting. But ideally, you'd have that countersink drill bit. You could do this all in one step. Just take a quick drill, put those 3 drill holes in, and then you're ready to go on to the next step. So next, and this is optional, you don't have to put glue on it, but it is an option. It's something I don't do mostly anymore because I found that the screws are strong enough, but if you want that extra layer of protection, that extra layer of strength, then use an exterior wood glue. And then you want to go ahead and set the 3 inch piece on top of the 2.5 inch piece as shown in example B. And then you want to take those 2.5 inch board, 1.5 inch or 1 1/4, depending on what you have. 1.5 would be ideal screws, and go and screw and connect those together. And you want to do that 4 times to create the 4 posts. Next, you want to take 2 of the posts and lay them as shown in picture A, so that you can put the side panels on. And so when you lay those out, you can use glue as shown in the picture. You don't have to, but if you use glue, that is something that will be one extra step of strength, but once again, that's optional. Then you lay the 12 7/8 boards. You'll notice I'm starting with the longer boards. That's an important step to make sure you start with those longer boards. You lay them out, making sure that you push them all to one end so that if you notice there in picture B that you actually have a little bit of a raised leg, roughly 1 inch to 1.5 inches of a raised leg. That's important for drainage. Also, it looks nice, and it just gives a little bit more of a premium look to it. Then you'll want to take 1 inch screws, and I would personally recommend that you pre-drill 3 holes in each board, so a total of 12 screws will go into each panel. And if you pre-drill those with that countersink bit, then it'll look nice and clean and be strong. But just slightly make a divot in that, and then go ahead and put 3 screws, like I said, on each end of each board, so a total of 12 screws on each panel, and attach that like shown in picture C. Once you've done the two side panels, so you obviously repeat that last step, step 4, twice, you'll take those boards and you'll lay them as shown in picture A up on a side. Then you'll take your shorter boards that are 11 3/4 and you want to go ahead and lay those in, similar to like what we did in step 4. Lay those in and attach those with the same 12 screws. Pre-drilling is recommended, and that will be stronger. And once again, you use those 1-inch screws. The reason I use 1-inch screws is because if you take a 5/8 inch board and you put that on top of a 5/8 inch board, and those can vary a little bit, if you used anything longer than a 1-inch screw, it would actually go through the edge and then it would poke through. It obviously wouldn't work. So you need to make sure you get 1-inch screws for this. I personally buy mine on eBay because they're the best price, but if you can get them locally, obviously that's the most ideal. So obviously you repeat the step from that to do that on both ends. And then step 6, you want to go ahead and install that 1 1/4 inch piece of wood that we were calling the cleat that you cut to 11 1/2 inches, as shown in picture A, right at the bottom near where one of the legs is at the end of that board. You want to use 3 screws to attach that, and you want to do that on both ends, on the opposite ends of each other. And then when you're done, you will be laying in the 2 bottom pieces that you cut, and you'll slide those directly in, and they should fit perfectly. And if you need to, sometimes depending on the wood that you use, you might have to slightly trim those boards slightly less than 5 1/2, but generally 5 1/2 is perfect. 2 5 1/2 inch boards will be perfect for that. And you will be left with just a tiny bit of a crack possibly. And if you have more of a crack, you can also trim a little small piece of wood to go in there. I guess actually technically, going back for a second, since you have 11 3/4 inch boards, you actually probably will have about a 3/4 inch gap in the middle. So you could take another piece of board that you have left over, cut a 3/4 inch piece by 11 1/2 and slide that in the middle. I actually would recommend that as part of the step if necessary with the size that you're doing, and then that would be great. So once you've done that, you have a completed box. So it's very simple. I have shown here in the pictures that this exact plan can be used to be turned into, that first picture there is a raised bed. That's simply an 2 8-foot sides and a 2-foot side on both ends, connected with the same exact construction, but no bottom put on. You'll notice I put 2 support bars there in the middle of the 8-foot box to keep it supported, but very simple construction, and then that will obviously sell for more money for less time. I have that next picture. I think that's a 30-inch long box. I've also made that exact construction in 36 inches. And then you'll see that bottom left picture, you'll see that there's a 14, a 16, and an 18-inch box showing the size differences. Same height, but 14, 16, 18 in the width and depth. And then you'll also see there that you can make these boxes 3 high, and of course you just increase the leg height, and you can make these 3 high as well for deeper, bigger things like trees or shrubs or things that require more roots. So that's the product. That's the quick. That's really why, I think the main reason why you're here. You want to learn the product. But I want to show you how to use that product to make $1,000 a month. So before I do that, I want to actually talk about the math. So how do you make $1,000 per month with Cedar Planter Boxes? We'll use our example from the plans that we told you about. The example was the 14-inch planter box. Once you do this a few times and you get used to the plans, you can get this done in about 30 minutes. So it doesn't take very long. It's pretty simple. It's straightforward, and you can get it done in about 30 minutes. And that is if you batch a little bit. When I say batch, I mean that you're cutting everything out for maybe 10 boxes at a time, all at the same time, and then you're assembling in like an assembly line fashion. Then you can get these done in about 30 minutes. I've proven that to be so. I just finished a large order that I delivered to a local hardware store, and I can't remember how many boxes it was, probably 80 to 100 boxes, and I did the math, and with a mix of 14 all the way to 36-inch boxes, it took me just over 30 minutes to complete each one, and that was of course some batching and everything. And I was able to make over $30 an hour even at a wholesale rate. So this will work, but we're talking mainly retail right at the moment, and you can make more than that per hour retail. So 30 minutes to build. The materials are going to cost you $10 or less. So cedar fence boards, I said you need 3. They cost less than $3 a piece. More expensive in some areas, less expensive in some areas. They can be anywhere from just over $2 to just under $3. So somewhere around there is normal. If you can get a better deal, that's great. Maybe you have some a source of fence boards that's like a fence company that's getting rid of boards. They have extra boards. That's a possibility. You can get creative, and you might be able to get this box down for less. But let's just say that you had to pay full retail with screws and wood. You're talking about $10 or less in materials. Retail price for the 14-inch box is about $35. I've proven that to be a good price. I've sold them both online and in person and wholesale with that $35 retail price. So I know that's good. And if you sell them for $35 and it costs you $10 to make the box, you have a $25 profit. Now, if you make 2 of those in an hour, that's $50 an hour. And of course, you can make that number go up, that number per hour, by making your materials less or slightly building more at a time. You'll figure out little tips and tricks as you go along to make this product faster. So how do you make $1,000 per month on the side? I say that if you spend 20 hours a week plus a little bit of marketing time, so maybe 20 hours a month plus a little bit of marketing time, so maybe 25 to 30 hours a week, that you can make $1,000. Now, you do that by building and selling 10 planter boxes per week and averaging $25 per box profit, which is easy, 14-inch box, and so on. And as you get larger, you actually make more per box profit because your time is about the same for a 14-inch box, a 16-inch box, an 18-inch box. Your time is actually pretty much identical, but the price of the box goes up, and so you'll be able to make more per box, and you might even be able to make more than $50 an hour retail. But let's just say that you stuck with the base example there, 14-inch box. You sell 10 a week. You build them in 5 hours. You make $250 profit. You do that for 4 weeks. You have $1,000. So that's a very simple way of how to do it. Now, that's how you do it. That's the product that you need. Now let's talk about where to sell it. Obviously, you'll need to be able to sell it. The first and easiest way to sell it is on Craigslist. Super easy, it's free, and all you need are some basic pictures and some descriptions, and then you can put it up there and you can get started immediately selling your product. I'll talk about what you need in a minute and getting prepared for that. Another thing that you'll look at is local markets. So when I say local markets, I mean a farmer's market. Most areas have a garden show that they do every year, and so you could look into getting into a garden show. And what about special events? There's certain festivals, and for instance, here in the Pacific Northwest, lavender is a big deal, and so there are a lot of lavender festivals, and a lot of times they sell products at the lavender festivals, and so that's one thing to look at as well. Festivals, events, places where you can go set up on a weekend and make some extra money. Obviously, we're talking about right now on the side. If you have a little bit more time, depending on what your commitments are during the week, if you have a little bit of extra time, you could actually sell these to your local hardware stores and co-ops. That's something that I do, and it's something that's been effective. It's been a good little injection of income into it, and it's also a little bit more predictable, and you can kind of get to know those people, and as your relationship grows, that could grow into more. Another way that you could sell these is if you make some real basic flyers and postcards, you can hand those out. You can put those on bulletin boards or resource boards or wherever you are that you have access to those kind of things. You could do that. Something else that I've done when I was just getting started is you can actually take and go door to door with those flyers and postcards, and maybe even carry around one small little box. And you could, if you live in a decently safe area, you can go door to door and you can sell those planter boxes to people just in your neighborhood. And so that's a good place to start as well. And what about your friends? So you can maybe give one or two to your neighbors, your friends, and ask them to give you word of mouth referrals. Give them a few cards and flyers, and you'll be surprised how much and how quickly the word will get out. Maybe even your customers that have bought them before, ask them to recommend you to other people. And like I've said before, I've taught a lot of sales information through my website, and one of the things I say is, referrals don't just always naturally happen. Sometimes they do, but most of the time referrals happen because you ask for referrals. So that can actually be way bigger than you think. So getting started for this, what I recommend you start with, kind of a step-by-step process here, is I recommend that you build 2 of each box size that you want to offer. So the sizes that I've created are 14-inch, 16-inch, 18-inch, 24, and 36-inch rectangular. You can vary that. You can decide what you want, but I think those particular sizes make a lot of sense, and they seem to fit the market well. The 14 and the 16 and the 18, you want to make that 12-inch tall. Then what I did is I recommend that you make the 18-inch and the 24 are also available in a taller version, which is 3 boards tall, which ends up being about 17.5 inches tall or so. And then that 36-inch box, you can have both in the 12-inch and the 17.5-inch height as well. And then I think where the real money is to be made is making these raised beds as well. So on Craigslist, people can come pick up a raised bed that you've assembled, like the picture that I showed. In fact, I'll go back to the picture just for a second. So the picture there in the far top left corner. So top left corner there, you'll see that bed there. That is one that is easy to build. You can build it with, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6, if you build it in a 6-foot size, that's 6 cedar boards, so that's somewhere around $18, and you can sell that for somewhere in the $50 range. So you can easily make $30 plus on that, and you can build that pretty quickly as well. That doesn't take a whole lot longer than it does to build one of those 14-inch boxes, because it has really about the same amount of screws, and then you don't have to put a bottom in it, so it's definitely a good thing. But you can make this into different sizes, but I recommend a 4-foot, a 6-foot, and an 8-foot raised bed. So build a couple of those. Maybe you have the raised beds, only build one of each. Get that pictured, maybe put some dirt in it, and maybe use it yourself. Then what I recommend is take some pictures. Now you can use a cell phone. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. You can use a cell phone, but the key is to make sure that there's some diffused light. If you try to go out on a complete sunny day, which may seem like it's a great time to take pictures, it's going to look awful. Everything's going to look stark. It's not going to be clean. It's just not going to look good and professional. But if you go out on a cloudy day with diffused light, the pictures will turn out even way, way better, and it'll actually look like a professional picture, even if you take it with your phone. So I personally just use my cell phone for a lot of the pictures that I do. For some pictures, we use our professional camera, but for a lot of times, I just take my Galaxy Note, and I take the pictures. It has a really good camera. I'm able to just quickly download it, use it, basic edit, and then I'm ready to go. And I do that by using natural lighting on a diffused, cloudy day, and that works really well. Third of all, you'll need to make sure that you determine your pricing. So you'll want to make sure that you figure out your costs for materials. So if a box costs $10 to make and it takes you a half hour to make, and you want to target $50 an hour, then that would be our $35 box that we talked about a minute ago. That's a real basic way to determine your cost. Obviously, there's more advanced ways that we could get into, but we won't right now. But that's a real basic way. Then the fourth way, and I have these first 4 bolded because they're the most easy steps to take, and they're ones that you can take immediately, and you can do it without spending a lot of extra time. But you want to take those pictures and write up a quick description and list those on Craigslist. Make sure that you check in on that ad. If the Craigslist ad stays up for 30 days, then go ahead and make sure that you set a reminder, so in another 30 days to go ahead and relist it on Craigslist to keep that fresh. Now, if you have a little bit more time, like I mentioned, if you have a little bit more weekend time, then sign up for a few local shows. Most of these local shows and events happen on Saturdays or Sundays. And you can be a part of a local farmer's market that happens on the weekends. You can be a part of a garden show. That can be a great place to sell your boxes. And the big side benefit to selling at local shows is you actually make connections with people that might become either customers in the future or maybe even a wholesale customer. So when I did farmers markets initially coming out and some shows, I made connections with several people that I still am selling to these days. as wholesale customers. So you want to get out in your local community and make a name for yourself. You want it to, if you're going to do some of the next step, which is hardware stores and co-ops, you'll need to make sure that you create a basic line card or line sheet that has pricing and information. So let me click over to a sample line card that I have created. So with that wholesale sheet that you created, you can go ahead and email that to some of your local hardware stores and co-ops. I don't recommend that you reach out too far for this, obviously, because planter boxes can be hard to ship. And so I would just recommend maybe a 30 to 40 mile radius around you that you can figure out, hey, these are the hardware stores, these are the local farm stores, these are the local co-ops that I would like to sell my product at. And you'll be surprised, especially in smaller areas where maybe it's a smaller municipality of 100,000 people or less, you'll find that there's a great sense of community and people want to buy from local vendors, and it might be easier to get in these companies than you think. So take a little time, email them, visit them, call them, build a relationship with your local co-op, your local hardware store, and maybe they'll sell your product. So do that. Another step, and these ones that are not bolded, like I mentioned, these are steps that you can take if you want to take this to the next level, make a little bit more than $1,000, and really maybe try to turn this into more of a full-time gig. But I would recommend, if you want to take this more serious, go to Squarespace, something similar like that, create a basic website, and put the pictures up of your items, maybe with some pricing. If you use Squarespace, it's really easy to actually set up an online shop where people can buy from you. You can also make some real basic flyers and postcards for some of the other steps that I talked about before, putting out flyers and things like that. So that's the basic preparation for getting this ready. Really, the next step for you is that you just have to take action. So nothing's going to happen if you just sit there and do nothing. But if you actually go and you build the boxes, you take the pictures, you list on Craigslist, you'll be surprised how quickly this will make an income. And if you take it to the next levels, do a couple markets, do the flyers, things like that, you can really go from making nothing from your hobby to making $1,000 plus per month. And it's very simple to do. Now, I do want to let you know that this is seasonal, obviously. This is not something that you're going to do all year long. This is something that you're going to maybe build earlier in the spring and that you'll sell maybe, depending on your weather, where you are. It could be anywhere between March and maybe the end of the summer, maybe June, July, August, somewhere around there. So March, April, May, June. It's like maybe a 4 month out of the year thing that will be the main season for you. So, but it will be a good income during that 4 months. But what about if you want to go full time? So I want to talk quickly about those of you that are listening that want to go full time woodworking. The steps I just took you through and the product I just took you through is definitely one of my income streams, and this is definitely an important part of my income stream. But if you really want to take it to the next level and go full time, you'll need more than just planter boxes. And so I have created and am in the process. And I just noticed that we had an audio glitch, so I will go back through this again. So if you want to make a full-time income with your woodworking, you'll want to make sure that you are very diversified. So you'll see a picture there, on the pictures on the slide there, of all the different ways that you can make income, and these are just a few of them. But if you want to make a full-time income, you want to make sure that you diversify not only with garden products, but with home products, with wholesale and retail, and a lot of different things. That way, different parts of the season, maybe around Christmas time, you sell a lot of home products and smaller products. Maybe around the springtime, you're selling more garden products, and throughout the year, you're selling both wholesale and retail to fill in the gaps. So I'm going to be putting on an exclusive online workshop, how to make a full-time income woodworking, to really take this to the next step. If you are ready to go full-time, then I'm going to teach you in this live online masterclass how to do that. This class is going to be $297, and that's a discounted rate because you are going to be a part of the live version of this class, and this class will be in the future not a live event. It'll be something that's pre-recorded, but at this point it's going to be live, in person, me live, live online, and you'll be able to answer. I'll be able to answer your questions. You'll be able to have access to me in a Facebook group. There's gonna be a lot of different benefits, but in the future it'll probably be around $499 or 400 and something. But right now you're able to access this for $297. It's gonna happen on March 17th at 9 a.m. It's gonna be a 3 to 4 hour event. It's gonna be live online. We're gonna do it through most likely Zoom, but I'm getting that set up right now, and you'll be able to access that if you have the private link that you will get when you purchase this webinar. And we'll take you step by step into taking your woodworking hobby into a full-time income source. So not just $1,000 per month, but actually to $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 per month or more if you are really good. So the bonus content you'll get access to an exclusive Facebook group where you can interact with other woodworkers as well as myself and get questions answered and kind of hold your hand through the process if you need that. You'll also get a live question and answer session after the live online masterclass where you can ask me specific questions about the content that we talked about and maybe how to get started yourself. I'm going to also give you a PDF printable book of my most sought after custom woodworking plans that have been tested and proven to sell consistently and with high profit margins. Also, you will get access to a downloadable video recording from the live event so that you can rewatch the masterclass as often as you want. Now, what about the content? So you're going to learn, number one, how to discover the right products to build and how to cultivate a functional, profitable, and highly efficient woodworking business that will allow you to work and sell more. So, it's easy to just like build things and then kind of try to sell them and then you don't make enough money on it and it's not worth it. But if you really take time to take the steps that I'm going to give in section 1, I believe that you'll be able to make products that are immediately successful, not only popular, not only will you know how to find the trends and figure out what to build, but products that are simple and easy to build that you can constantly put out that are fun to build. You obviously have to enjoy this. It has to be something fun, but something that you can repeat and is very consistent and that will sell. So that's section 1. Obviously, that are profitable is key. Section 2 is how to create a sustainable pricing for both wholesale and retail customers. And so you want to make sure that you have both wholesale and retail. I'll go into how to create pricing, not only for just the cost plus time method, but there's a lot of other different things that we can talk about in that, how to make that pricing correct. And that's a little bit of a science to that and a little bit of an art as well. So we'll talk about that process. And it's important if you're going to make enough income that you have to keep a lot of variables in mind. So not only just the building time, but also the marketing time. And what about your costs that are kind of hidden sometimes? What about taxes? You really have to think about all these things when you're doing pricing. Then I want to take section 3 and we'll talk all about wholesale. This is one of the things that I spent 3 years building a sales territory, and I built it to almost $1 million when I decided to go self-employed. So very successful at wholesale level. This is something I have a lot of expertise in, and I believe it's important. But I will take you through the basics of how to go through and get meetings, what you'll need to be prepared for in the meetings, how to seal the deal, and how to keep your customers happy to get repeat buys. Obviously with wholesale, that's important, is you do the main work one time, getting that customer, and then you get repeated business over and over and over as long as you take care of them. In section 4, we're going to talk about retail. We're going to talk all about how to thrive in a competitive retail environment as an artisan woodworker, and you make sure that you don't sacrifice your margins. So wholesale, you'll make a little less money but per item, but you'll make more in the long run because of the volume. It also will allow you to buy materials when you do wholesale at maybe discounted rates if you're buying larger amounts. That's a key one. But you can mix in retail. Retail is important. You can make high profit margins, and you can sell both retail online or in person, which I say in person, Craigslist, farmers markets, and stuff like that, as we kind of talked about, and we'll go over way more in depth the actual strategies for selling retail, where to sell, strategies and tips for each one that I recommend. Section 5 will be all about sales and marketing. We'll talk about both online marketing, offline marketing, and we'll go over strategies to really make sure that you capture your target customers' attention, keep them coming back to you over and over again. We'll also go a little bit into advertising, paid advertising, and then of course free marketing that you can do. Free marketing is actually still my most successful channel, and so you'll want to use that. Section 6 will actually go over several tried and true products and product categories and give you some woodworking plans that you can actually use to get started. And I will tell you a lot of my sourcing secrets, where to source inexpensive wood and how to find high quality materials at bargain prices. Section 7, we're going to talk about running a business, the actual steps of running, growing, scaling, and maintaining a healthy business so you continue to work less and make more. I really think you can make this a full-time income, but you're going to have to do just a little bit of work. But you know what the cool thing is? I've done a lot of the figuring out for you, so that way you can just step right in. And if you take this course, you pay $297, then you'll be a part of this course. Once again, if you want to be a part of this, I have put this link that you see, salespurpose.com/live. I put that link in the YouTube video description below. You can go ahead and click that and go right over to the sales page, and you can make that purchase. But be aware that this is a limited time offer. It's not going to be available for very long, and this is an event that's happening in 2 weeks. It's a 3 to 4 hour event, and let me just let you know. So it's $297. That's a really good deal. It's less than it's going to be in the future. This is kind of the launch, initial launch of it, and I'm doing it live. You're going to be able to ask questions of me, and like I mentioned there, I'll be able to be live to answer your questions. But you'll be able to make that $297 back in less than a week. I mean, your profit, if you follow my steps, you'll be to easily make $5,000 a month. Maybe more. And just in a few days, you'll be able to make that $300. So the $300 is a super small investment. It's well worth it. You're going to get 3 to 4 hours of my time on the video. You're also going to get a Facebook group and continued support, and it's going to be well worth your time. So I think it's important. But if you go to the YouTube link, the link that's in the YouTube description below, salespurpose.com/live. You can see where you can actually click and purchase this webinar. It's going to happen, like I mentioned, March 17th at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and that's in 2 weeks. It's going to be the online live masterclass that'll take you step by step how to turn your woodworking hobby into a full-time income and an income source so you can make money doing work that you love. So thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate your time. I hope that you get a lot of value from this, and I hope that you really take action, take the next steps, and not only start with the planter box, make that extra $1,000 a month. I really believe that could change your life, that could pay off bills that you need. You could maybe save up for a vacation that you wanted. But then I really think that if you do well with that initial thing, and if you're really excited about going full-time with woodworking, take the time, invest in yourself, and buy the $297 course, again, at salespurpose.com/live, LIVE. And then you can learn my steps, tips, tricks, step-by-step process of how you can make a full-time income woodworking. So thank you so much for being a part. I'll check to see if there are any questions below.